Hello to all viewers. Hello to everyone. I am Shiloh, the last scribe for the house of Jacob. I am a messenger and a true servant of the Almighty. On November 29th, 2019, the Almighty will visit the earth to judge every living thing. On that day, every living thing will be given life or death. This video is part 23 of a series of videos titled The Book of Genesis, Unsealed and Untold. These series of videos cover everything in the book of Genesis, from chapter 1 to chapter 50. This is the final video of these series of videos. With all the confusion removed, with all the allegories removed, in these series of videos, you will hear the truth according to the Almighty, according to what the Almighty commanded the house of Jacob to keep recorded. So I will start where I last left off. Let's begin video number 23. Bury me with my grandfather Abraham and my father Isaac in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, the cave that my grandfather Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite for possession of a burial place. There they buried my grandfather Abraham and his wife Sarah. There they buried my father Isaac and his wife Rebekah. There I buried my wife Leah. When Jacob had made an end of commanding his sons, he put his feet up into the bed. As he was about to die, he took his last breath, then his soul departed, and his body died. Joseph accepted the judgment in his portion of the inheritance. Joseph accepted his father's death. He accepted all his father's household. Joseph accepted to honor and respect the Almighty, the all-supreme ruler of his forefathers, of his grandfather, and of his father. From fear and from heaviness, in the presence of his family, in the front of all their faces, Joseph fell upon his father's face. In grief he cried. He wept bitterly over his father Jacob. As he was lamenting, he gently touched his father and kissed him upon the face. Then Joseph commanded his servant physicians to embalm his father Jacob with ripened spices. And with ripened spices the physicians embalmed his father Jacob. 40 days of mourning were completed for Jacob. This is the same time of days given to those who are embalmed. But the Egyptian mourned Jacob for 80 days. When the days of his mourning had passed, Joseph spoke to the house of Pharaoh, saying, Now, if I have found favor and acceptance in your sight, I pray that you will speak in the ears of Pharaoh. Tell him, my father Jacob made me take an oath, saying, he will be buried in the grave that has been dug for him in the land of Canaan. Now, this is where I must bury him. Pharaoh responded, saying, Go to Canaan. Bury your father according to the oath you took to honor him. And Joseph departed away and went to Canaan to bury his father Jacob. The servants of Pharaoh, elders of his house, and elders of the land of Egypt were with Joseph as he journeyed to Canaan to bury his father. All the house of Joseph, his brethren, all of Jacob's house, went with Joseph to bury Jacob in the land of Canaan. They left their flocks, their herds, and their children in the land of Goshen. It was a very great company of people. Both chariots and horsemen traveled with Joseph to Canaan to bury his father Jacob. They journeyed to an area across and beyond the Jordan. Then they came to an open area, an empty place that had thorn trees. They had come to a place called Atad. There they mourned with a very heavy and great lamentation. For 7 days, Joseph set up a mourning for his father Jacob. When the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw a mourning set up in the open area of Atad, they spoke to themselves, saying, This mourning is moving slow, and it is massive. The Egyptians are numerous in number. So the name of it was called Avel Mitzrayim, meaning the meadow of Egypt. Jacob's sons respected him as an honorable man, and they would spare anything to help him. So his sons did according to what he commanded, and brought him into the land of Canaan to be buried with his fathers. They buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah. Abraham bought this field and cave for a possession of a burial place. He purchased it from Ephron the Hittite. After he buried his father, Joseph returned into Egypt, he, his brethren, and all those who went into the land of Canaan with him to bury his father. When Joseph's brothers considered and discerned that their father was dead, they presented themselves one to another. They looked at each other in the face and spoke to one another, saying, "Now Joseph will be hostile toward us. He will turn away from the Almighty. He will hate us as an enemy. He will bring back all the evil upon us that we have did to him. He will lead us away and bring distress upon us." So they sent a messenger to Joseph. They told the messenger to say this, saying, "Before your father died, he commanded you and prayed that you would forgive your brothers of their trespass. He commanded you and prayed that you will forgive their sin. Your brothers did deal evilly with you. Now forgive your brethren, who are fellow servants and worshippers of the Almighty." When Joseph heard the message from his brothers, he cried. Then Joseph's brothers came to him, presenting themselves. They humbly kneeled down in front of him so he could see their faces. "Look and see, we are your servants." And Joseph responded, saying, "Do not fear me. I am not the Almighty. I cannot take the place of the Almighty. But as for you, you thought and desired evil against me. You devised evil against me. But the Almighty had already considered me. The Almighty was mindful of me, and he esteemed me. He had already purposed me. The plan was invented and purposed to come to pass by him. So, as it is this day, to sustain life for an exceedingly great number of people, to keep them from sickness, to help them grow, to help them restore their health from faintness, and to save their lives from death. You do not need to fear me. I will nourish you and your children." Joseph spoke kindly to his brothers and comforted them. Now Joseph lived in Egypt, he and his father Jacob's house. Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph was caused to see Ephraim's children to their third generation. Joseph considered them. He had experiences with them. He learned about them. Mahir, the son of Manasseh, brought his children up to be upon Joseph's knees. In time, Joseph spoke to his brothers, saying, "I am dying. When I am dead, the Almighty will remember you and make a friendly visit to you. He will watch over you and attend to you. He has appointed an overseer, and you will be committed into his care. At the Almighty's judgment, the Almighty will punish and hurt the people in the land of Egypt. Then he will bring you out of this land unto the land that he promised to our forefather Abraham, to our grandfather Isaac, and to our father Jacob. Pay attention to the overseer, and observe him, or the Almighty will visit you to judge you and punish you." The sons of Jacob, Joseph's brothers, all his brethren took an oath to Joseph. They spoke to him, saying, "We will carry your bones away from here." Joseph was 110 years old when he died. His brethren embalmed him, and Joseph was put in a coffin in Egypt. This is the end of part 23 of my video series titled The Book of Genesis, Unsealed and Untold, and these series of videos have covered my manuscript titled The Almighty, the Beginning, His Creation of Mankind, His Promise to Judge Mankind, His War against the Elohim, His New World and His Order. This is also the end of these series of videos that cover the book of Genesis from chapter 1 to chapter 50. I am Shiloh, the last scribe for the house of Jacob. Watch my videos, follow me, and discover the recorded truth about the Almighty, His power, His glory, His honor, His reputation, his experiences with, and his message to all the individual species of persons on the earth.